Hey, how's it going? So in this video I'm going to show you how to get your Sloyd knife and your hook knife really nice and sharp and ready for carving using the new sharpening system from the spoon crank. And just before I start, if you'd like to get your own sharpening system, there's a link in the description of the video to the spoon crank's website, and if you use the code will_sharp_10, the number 10, then you can get 10% off your own sharpening system. All that info will be in the description. Alright, let's get going. Okay, so depending on what state your blade is in, you can start from as coarse a grit as 800 or all the way up to 5000 if you just want to give it a bit of a polish. Mine's not in too bad a state, it just needs a bit of a touch up, so I'm going to start with 1500. And you've got these perspex plates that clip onto this wooden board here. The sandpaper has a sticky adhesive back, so you just have to peel that off, line it up with the plate, and then you're good to go. And when you're finished with one plate, you just take it off and you pop the next one on. So easy. Okay, you can use this sandpaper wet or dry. It's waterproof, so I like to make it a little bit wet, so I'll put a few just drops of water. And then the most important thing, you're only going to be sharpening the knife if you hit the edge. So you want to be getting the bevel as flat on the sandpaper as possible. And the best way to do that is to lay it on the spine and then just angle it down until you hit the bevel. Then holding it steadily and then drawing it back. You don't have to do the whole length of the blade in one go. You can just do one section and then you can move up to the tip, same thing, just angle it down, bit of pressure, and then you'll see the dark marks on the sandpaper means that you're removing metal, so that's a good sign. Now if you're not sure that you're actually taking anything off the blade, there's a couple of ways to check. Firstly, if you feel on the other side, you should be getting a bit of a burr, so you can feel there's a sort of rough edge on this side, which is the metal kind of being pushed over as it gets sharpened. So I can feel there's a very slight burr there at the moment. Another way is you can actually mark the edge. Something like that. And then have a look, and you can see I've hit all of that, which is great, except for this bit at the end, so I know I need to concentrate on that bit there. So you don't need to give it too many goes on each side. As soon as you've got yourself a bit of a burr, then you can swap sides. Now this pen here is still there because I've got a slightly hollow ground knife, so I'm not going to actually hit the middle bit there, but I know I'm hitting the either side of the bevel, so I'm happy with that. So on this side, same thing, start at this end, lay it flat on the spine and then angle it down to the bevel and push away. Now the great thing about this is it's got a non-stick bottom, so you can kind of push quite hard and it won't move, it will stay steady. I do know that they are developing a different non-stick bottom, so you won't be having these kind of rubber feet anymore. It'll be a hole covering along the bottom, which will be a bit more stable, so that's good. I'll get a bit more water. Okay, let's do a few more passes here. And then I can feel the burr back on the other side, so I know I've hit the edge, and I can move on to the next grit. So just pop that off, stick on the next one. How easy is that? Bit of water, and then same again. You don't want to do too many passes on one side. It's good to kind of do a few on one side, do a few on the other side, so you get an even wearing on both sides. Otherwise you can end up with a slightly uneven bevel. So again, I can feel and I can actually see, because it's nice and sunny, I can see there's a slight burr, which means that I'm hitting the edge. So I'll do a couple more passes, and then I'll move on to the next grit. Okay, that's looking good. Pop that one off. Now I'm up to 2,500. Bit more water. Make sure you get any bits of dirt that can make their way onto the sandpaper. Get rid of them, because they can get in the way. And okay. Right, that's looking nice. So you should be able to get at least 2 or 3 sharpenings out of each piece of sandpaper. Obviously you can see where I've been sharpening here, so you can always twist it round and you can use this bit, and you can also just wipe off some of the metal and it's good to go again. So once you've used up a piece of sandpaper and it's lost its grit, or you just want to swap to another piece, all you have to do is just peel it off, and as you can see, the adhesive that's been used is a really special one, and it leaves no residue on the plate, so there's no need to have any sort of cleaning agent or anything like that to clean the plate afterwards. You just peel it off and then stick on the next one. So I'm going to stick on the 5,000 now. bit more water. And this is such a fine sandpaper that you're almost just polishing the blade. Okay, so there's two stropping plates. One has the leather side and one has the suede side. These are both made from kangaroo leather, which is really thin and I'm told very strong as well, so very durable. So you want to start with the suede side, pop that on, and you can see this already has a bit of honing compound, so you just want to rub that on. Don't need too much, and that just acts as a sort of another polishing agent for the blade. So exactly the same principle as with the sandpaper, making sure that you're always stropping away from the blade, not towards the blade, because you're going to damage the leather. You can work a bit at a time, being careful when you do get to the tip that you don't dig in with the end and damage the leather. That's quite easily done, so just be aware of that. So give it a few passes on one side and then swap it over. Now you can take your time. You don't have to rush drawing it across the strop, and the same goes for the sandpaper, because if you do rush, it's quite easy to sort of lose your angle and you can end up going too far and curling or convexing the blade, which is what you want to avoid. You want to keep the bevel as flat as possible. So you can go as slow as you like. And really on the strop, you can't strop too much. You can give this as many passes as you like till you think you've removed all of the marks from the sandpaper. So that's looking really nice and shiny. Let's give it a couple more. Also, be very careful when you're holding down the blade that you don't put your fingers over the edge and push the blade itself, because obviously that's a good way to cut your fingers. Okay, so I'll take that off. Okay, so finally the leather side to finish the stropping. So you don't put any compound or anything on this, you just keep it as it is. And then exactly the same as the last one, watching out for the tip because this is very easily damaged. And again, you can give it as many passes as you like. Right, that's looking pretty good. Let's see how we're doing. Look at that, so sharp. So that's going to give you a really, really nice shiny finish on the wood. It's going to make carving so much easier than when your knife was blunt. and what I would suggest is every half hour or so, if you're doing a lot of carving, come back to the strop, just give it 10 passes on either side and then again on the leather, and it will keep it really nice and polished. And the more you strop, the less you should have to sharpen. Okay, so on to the hook knife, or the crook knife, or spoon knife, or whatever you want to call it. The principle with sharpening these is that you only really sharpen the inside edge. Usually the outside edge has a profile that you don't really want to alter. So for example, this one has a nice curve and then a bit of a secondary bevel, and it would be really easy if I were to sort of mess with the outside to change that, and it would alter the kind of usability of the knife. So there's no need for me to touch that bit as long as I keep it sort of polished. The inside of this one has a hollow grind, but if your knife has just a flat, then it's going to be exactly the same principle, so that doesn't make a difference at all. So what you want to be doing is you want to be trying to keep the inside as flat as possible, and to do that you can use a wooden dowel, and then the sandpaper wraps around the dowel and you use that to sharpen inside. So I'll just show you how that works. So again, my knife just needs a bit of a touch up, so I'm going to start with a 2000, but if you find yours is really dull, or if you're noticing that it's leaving some kind of like track lines in the wood, then it means you've got a tiny nick somewhere in the blade. So I recommend starting from one of the lower number grits and working your way up. So again, really easy, just peel off the paper. Now make sure you wrap it around nice and tightly. Again, you can wet this, but I would generally keep it dry. It works just as well. Now what you want to make sure, just move these, what you want to make sure is that you're not angling the sandpaper one way or the other. You want to keep it as flat as possible across the whole face of the inside to make sure that you're keeping the edge flat and not curved, not convexed. So you can take your time. I find it easy if I rest my hand on something, or you can rest the knife on something like this, and so you can see here I'm hitting both sides of the inside, that's a good sign. And then, as with the Sloyd knife, you want to be looking for a slight burr on this side, which means that you're sharpening the edge. And again, if you want to use a pen or something just to colour in the edge, just to make sure that you're hitting the right areas, then you can do that. So you can go in either direction, forwards or backwards, or one and the other, and do as many passes as it takes for you to start feeling that burr. So I can feel it just slightly, so I'll do a few more, up and down. There we go. So because you're only using a small section of it for each sharpening, you actually don't need to put the whole piece of sandpaper on, because that's obviously taking up room that you could have other grits. So what you can do is, so I've got 2500 here, is just cut off a section like that. And then stick that on. Nice and tight again. And then I can just use that for the next go. So I'm doing exactly the same now with this grip. You can see I'm taking off a nice bit of metal. And again with this, just take your time. You don't have to rush it. The most important thing is that you're keeping the sandpaper flat to the knife. And not angling it one way or the other. So that's pretty good. And then I'm going to skip straight up to the 5000. Now if you've got more than one dowel, of course I'd say don't bother cutting these down. You can just have maybe 2 grits per dowel. But because I've only got the one, this way works. So I'm going to put that right on the end in case I decide to put another one in between. So that's on there nice and tight. And I can see that's polishing it really nicely. I'm getting a really shiny blade now. That's looking really good. So now you want to strop it. So you can strop the outside as well, and that's a good idea because you'll remove the tiny burr that you've got there. So back on this one, there's no need to put any more compound on the strop, not yet. There's a couple of ways you can do this. You can keep this flat on the table, and in the same way as you did with the straight knife, you can kind of angle it down until you hit the bevel, hold it down with your fingers and push away. It's easiest to do this in kind of 2 sections, so this part and then adjust a bit for the top. And the other way that actually I prefer is to hold the strop up and strop it this way. So I'll do that and then I'll So I'm just watching really closely to make sure that the edge is always at the right angle to the leather. And then I'll swap over back to this one. So it's totally up to you which whether you strop the inside or the outside first. I prefer to sharpen the inside, strop the outside, and then come back to strop the inside as the sort of final part. So to strop the inside, you've got this another piece of dowel with some kangaroo suede on one side and leather on the other side. give it a little bit of compound, and then exactly the same principle as with the sandpaper. I'll rest my arm on this, keeping it as flat as possible across the face of the blade. And again, being really careful that you don't draw it this way so that you cut into the leather. If anything, you want to be sort of pushing away like this. So once I've done a few passes, then I'll move over to the leather, do exactly the same. And give it as many as you want. Again, you can't strop too much. So I've got some dry old sycamore here. So nice and smooth. So there we go. That's how you sharpen your hook knife. Okay, there we have it. How easy was that? I've got two super sharp tools now, ready for carving. And don't forget, if you want to get your hands on one of these sharpening systems, just follow the link in the description to the Spoon Cranks website and use my discount code to get 10% off. I've also released a review video of this sharpening system, so check that out, the link also in the description. And yeah, hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.